Hey, folks, welcome back to Rugby Ascendant segment of Chris Wyatt Africa and the Rugby Ascendant channel, where you'll find this interview later load up on both those channels. Appreciate you having us here. Well, listen, I have got a special feature today. I have the founder of the Harley Davidson motorcycle company here with me today. He plays for Rugby Atlanta now and magically founded that company decades ago, but this oak is in his 20s. I don't know how he did it, but hey, Harley, welcome to the program.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Okay, well, obviously you didn't found the Harley Davidson company. What's going on there? Okay, you know that's going to be the first question. You probably get that all the time. How is it that your name is Harley Davidson?
It was my dad's idea for sure. And he used to ride motorcycles back in the day, and he just always wanted to have one of his kids named Harley Davidson. And my mom was completely against it because she was worried I was gonna be teased growing up, but it's been nothing but positive. So.
Well, there you go. There you have it, folks. If you're curious how he got that name, but yeah, no, I remember seeing your name listed on the roster. I thought, is that a typo? Did they get that wrong? Maybe it's Davison, not Davidson. Anyway, but you're originally from Tampa, Florida, but I guess you grew up in Boise.
Yeah, I was born in Tampa, but we moved to Florida when I was a baby, so I grew up in Idaho.
Well, okay. Other than the obvious question about potatoes, it's Boise is all right, but I've been to Idaho many times. I've been to Coeur d'Alene, and I've been down there just outside of Yellowstone, West Yellowstone. What was it like growing up there in Idaho?
I mean, it was great. It's a great place to raise kids, honestly, and it's a really small city. I mean, it's expanding really quickly now, but it's love it. Love going back home and visiting family. There's just so much to do. Everything is really close by. You're close to the mountains. You're close to rivers and lakes. You're close to that city. It's a really good spot.
Well, that kind of begs the question, Harley. Close to the mountains, close to the rivers, close to lakes. Are you an outdoorsman of any sort?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Fisherman, hunter. What do you do?
Fishing. I haven't been hunting yet. Would love to go, but big time fishing, big time camping. Love hiking, going up in the mountains and exploring. So.
Well, I think we get along really well. Given the opportunity between going to the beach and going to the mountains, that's a no-brainer for me. It's always the mountains.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So what are you, a fly fisherman, or are you just with the normal?
I did actually recently got into fly fishing. Fly fishing is a lot of fun, but I'm still pretty new at it.
Yeah, that's what I'm going to ask you. People say it's fun. I've given it a try there. It seems to me to be very exhausting after a while.
Yeah, it does get exhausting, but yeah, I think the nice thing about it keeps you busy. You're constantly always doing something rather than just putting a rod out there and waiting. So I kind of like constantly being able to do something.
I think that's a good point, rather than just sitting there watching the bobber go up or down or not doing anything, but you know that a lot of fishermen that do that, they're not there for the fishing, they're there for the beer. That's why they're So now you played lots of sports, like a lot of young athletes. You're multi-sport. I think you played football. You're a wrestler as well.
Yes. Yeah. I grew up wrestling, love doing that. Got towards the end of my high school, I kind of took a break from wrestling, which I honestly really regret. I wish I stuck with it. And then big into football. And then sophomore year, my brother introduced me to rugby, and I was instantly hooked. And I was definitely made my decision to stick with that.
So there's rugby in Idaho.
Yeah. So when I first started, it wasn't too big, and it was growing at the time. So like my first year, a coach basically would try to get us the trip out to California to play a couple teams there, and then at the end of the year, they would play Boise State, and they were kind of trying to use it as like a recruiting opportunity to get guys to come out. When they want to go to Boise State, then they would go and play for the rugby team. And but now, I mean, there's plenty of guys. I can't name everyone's name. They've done a phenomenal job growing the sport there, and now there's like U12 teams. There's little kids leagues all over. There's over 10 women's and guys teams. It's doing a really, really good.
Well, that's amazing. When I think of Boise State, of course, like most people, I think of, was it that blue football field they got? Yeah. That still gets your attention there. That's something else, but they've had quite a successful football program there at Boise State for a long time. Pretty impressive.
Yeah.
So let me ask this question. You are part of this pipeline that I've mentioned with other athletes there. So I was wondering how you wind up in Major League Rugby or with Rugby Atlanta or ATL. You're not South African, so you didn't get there because of that. They got 8,000 South Africans playing for Rugby ATL, so you didn't come from there. And then you weren't with the Colorado, or you were with the Colorado Raptors. Were you with Colorado Raptors?
Yeah, I was with the Raptors for the first 2 years at MLR.
Okay, so that's part of it. Maybe that's how you got there. Or is it because you attended Life University?
That was the start, I think.
Okay.
I give a lot of thanks though to Mike Saunders, who was my coach when I played club rugby in Idaho, and he knew Dan Payne at the time, and he was kind of my link there, and kind of just started from there.
Now, you mentioned being a wrestler, and I got to ask you this question: as a wrestler, Greco-Roman wrestler, not WWE,
Yeah, yeah.
as a Greco-Roman wrestler, how did that help you with rugby? I'm going to guess, hopefully, it proved to be utilitarian in a standpoint that maybe it helped you with tackling or knowing people's center of gravity and that sort
Oh
of
yeah.
thing.
100%, especially me being like a smaller guy. I'm not the biggest guy out there, but just being able to know how to take a guy down. The first ever tackle I ever did, it was in high school. I got a penalty for it because I didn't know about the dump tackle, because so used to wrestling. I picked a guy up and turned him over, immediately penalty, but they stopped it. It was a learning lesson for me. But yeah, it's for sure. It's good, teaches you good technique, and like you said, center of gravity, knowing where that's at.
Well, that's actually a good point. I hadn't thought about that. Yeah, that's what you do in wrestling. You pick guys up and you throw them down. So that's going to get you a yellow card in rugby. So
Yeah.
good point. I hadn't thought about that. Now, at Life, you got a degree in exercise science. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
And so, okay, I mean that sounds self-evident, but maybe it's not. What exactly is that? Is that helping people, teaching people, coaching people, or developing methods for proper exercise so people don't get injured and they're fit, or what is it? Because I don't know.
There's so many different routes you can go towards it, and a lot of people will kind of go the personal training route. But I kind of used it more as a stepping stone to go into the chiropractic program, which is what I'm currently in right now as well.
Well, you did mention this is that you're not the tallest guy out there. So usually you think of a wing, it's somebody tall like me on the outside there, but you're not the tallest. Does that give you an advantage or disadvantage being on a wing and not being, one of those guys that towers over everybody?
I mean, I think there's both disadvantages and advantages to it. Obviously, like a smaller guys are going to want to put the high balls up towards me for sure to try to put me under pressure. But I think I have advantages. I'm also a little quicker, shifty guy, and it's definitely be a lot harder to take down. So I think it goes both ways there.
So looking at the timeline, it looks like you also played on that Life team with Duncan and with Austin that played in the CRC.
Yeah, great guys.
Yeah, well, I'm going to have to go back and look at those photographs. I have tons of photo and video because I used to go to the CRC every year after I came back from Africa. And then I was there. You guys really do a great job up there. Life is amazing when it comes to sevens. I mean, there's some schools that people aren't too familiar with. Life is one of them, and Kutztown is another. People don't know Kutztown, but boy, Kutztown and Life, they bring it on against the likes of Cal Bears and teams like that. You guys really stand toe to toe. And for Life, it's not just the men. The women's team is impressive too.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So
yeah, great program.
Playing sevens as a winger and playing sevens, probably not as big a stretch for you to transition over to 15s as it is for some of the bigger guys. Because I asked some of the big guys, did you play sevens at Life? And like, no, are you serious? I didn't play sevens. I mean, let's talk about it really quickly here. So do you have a preference? I mean, I think the answer probably now is, I love 15s because I'm playing professional rugby, but do you enjoy sevens? Was it enjoyable, or is it just exhausting?
Oh yeah, for sure. I'd love sevens. It was a lot of fun. But I think it was definitely something that was difficult to kind of pick from. But I decided I had to just kind of pick one route, and I decided to stick with 15s. I think 15s, there's more to do. It's more of a team camaraderie, and it's kind of I don't know. There's something different about it.
Well, in these days, if you were looking to play professionally, it's almost the only route because we don't have professional sevens here. The only thing is the national side, and there's only a handful of people can play on the national side. So 330 million Americans, only about a dozen or so get to play on the national seven side.
Yeah.
So probably a good decision. Well, what's it like? I mean, you're a professional athlete. I mean, that's got to be really cool.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, it's tough. I don't feel any different, honestly. I mean, it's just, I don't know how to explain it. It is pretty cool. I think the big thing is kind of the interaction with the fans and asking people, like having people come up to you and asking for your autograph. That stuff kind of blows me away still. But I don't know. I think it's different with rugby players. We don't feel like we're superstars out there. We're just normal people like you and me, and or anyone next door neighbors.
Well, that's a good statement. And that's what I've been telling people for years. I was introduced to rugby as a freshman at university a long time ago. And that's when I first became aware of it. And I walked away loving the game from the first time I was out there watching a game, even though I had no idea what the rules were. And I didn't realize that I was standing in touch because we were all standing in touch because there's no seats. We're just on the side of the field there. We didn't even know what touch was. I'm like, it's not Australian rules football. It's not American football. It's definitely not soccer, but it's really cool. It's I've never met anybody I've taken to a rugby game that didn't enjoy it. And the other thing is that you've just alluded to, and that's where I'm going with this, is that the thing I've always liked about rugby is that rugby players are not, as even professional players are not like, and not just in Major League Rugby. We're talking about Curry Cup and Super Rugby, Premier League, and even in Premier League in England, where it's huge, Pro 14, and then also in France, it's professional rugby players by and large are humble. They're easy to approach, and you come up to them. They don't act like, Beckham or some superstar or something like that, or a major or a professional football player. It's really cool. And I've liked that about professional rugby, is that most rugby players keep that humility and that I'm just another guy sort of thing. And we're having a good time. I think that's a nice approach to it. And it's interesting that you say that it's different, weird having people ask you for autographs, but that's a nice sign that people ask you for autographs. It's kind of cool that they want your autograph.
Yeah, for sure.
So what's the future plan? So you're going to stick with it as long as you can, or you got something laid on down the road, or what's the deal?
Oh yeah, I mean, that's definitely the goal. I mean, this year for me was definitely a kind of a wake up call with the unfortunate head injury in the beginning of the season, being done for the season. But I'm doing great now. I'm doing fantastic. I still have my goals in mind, and I'm still going to be pursuing those things, and going to push it as long as I can until decide it's no longer the goal in mind at the moment. So right now, that's also why I'm kind of in the chiropractic program as well. I want to be a chiropractor and pursue those goals as well.
Well, that's the question I really want to get to. I didn't really know how to approach that question with the head injury that you had, and it put you out for a season. That's pretty serious to be out for the whole season. Sometimes guys are back in a couple of weeks. You look like you're okay. You recovered from it. Has it been a long road back, or it's just been an abundance of caution?
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, it's tough. The first 6 weeks were extremely tough, but just because I kind of didn't know how to handle it. Thought I just locked myself in the room, try to avoid getting a headache. I didn't know what to do. And then, but Scott here and Barber Orthopedics, they've done a phenomenal job of taking care of me, and they had me go up to Pittsburgh and down to a center up there that takes care of the Pittsburgh Steelers. And I got phenomenal treatment, and they took really good care of me. And they were even impressed how well I've been doing and how quickly I've recovered. They're even like, maybe a possibility, can we push it? Maybe come back at the end of the season. And they're like, it's better just to stay safe, be done for the season, and hit it hard next season. So I mean, it's unfortunate as far as concussion goes. I'm completely cleared, good, but there was some damage. So that's kind of one of the reasons that I just want to take the time, let my brain heal, and take that time off.
Yeah, no, you definitely want that, and I'm sure it had to be a huge disappointment to go down so early, and because it's been a pretty incredible season. But are you still active with the team, doing things, contributing? Are you studying film? Are you contributing on the sideline or analyzing the game? Is there some role for you that's been going on since you've been out?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, if obviously for this, like I said, for the first 6 weeks was tough because I was completely away from that, and I think everyone was super worried about me. And as soon as I came back, everyone was like super cheerful, fully welcomed me in. It was like being welcomed back into the family, and it was really good. I'm back lifting with the team, full-time training with the team. Obviously, when they get into contact, I have to step off and do some extra running on the side, but it is what it is. And but yeah, they definitely. I mean, as a whole program, I think we do a phenomenal job. Everyone kind of plays their part and plays their role. I mean, it's more than just the 23 guys that play on the weekends. I mean, whoever is ready to play is willing to pick up and put on that jersey and represent Rugby ATL. And I think that's super important. And there's a lot of guys that are willing to make those sacrifices.
No, that's pretty awesome. But I'm sorry, you're saying?
Yeah, so it's not just me that, that's like also contributing as well, but there's so many guys also that, don't get that recognition that also put forth a ton for the team. That's awesome.
No, absolutely. And I suppose that an event like that, I don't want to put you on the spot here, but is it something that really grabs your attention and realizes that, life is precious, and you got to take the time, you got to seize the moment, make the most of things, and that enjoy what's in front of you now, because it may not always be there. Is that a perspective you took away from this injury, or no?
For sure. I mean, I truly believe like everything happens for a reason. And I think that's gave me an opportunity to kind of humble myself to kind of take a step back, realize what my goals are, what I'm pursuing, what I have been doing, what should I be doing differently, and going forward. And I think it's the biggest thing, is constantly just keep going forward and looking for the next job and looking for the next step.
Well, I think this is a question that some people may want to be curious about, besides the origin of the Harley Davidson name. And that's with your family living up or being from Idaho. and Major League Rugby just becoming more of a national televised thing on ESPN, on CBS. But this year, the Rugby Network has been carrying all the games. So, do your family get a chance to watch your games? Is that of interest to them, and are they able to do it?
Oh yeah, for sure. My family loves it. I mean, my dad lives in Florida with my grandma and helping her out. My grandpa recently passed away, and so they love watching the games with that. And my dad introduced her. My grandma thinks it's awesome. She starts yelling at the TV. My mom and stepdad both live in Idaho still, and they both watch the games as well. My mom loves it. She doesn't know what's going on, neither does my stepdad, but they still like watching it just because when I'm playing, they love being able to kind of get involved that way.
Well, that's pretty awesome. And let me ask you this question. There was a stage this year when Rugby ATL seemed to just want to give all of us who are watching the game heart attacks, put us in cardiac arrest watching, because they just had this propensity to bring it down to the very last moment to decide whether they're going to win or to score and win. And I interviewed Matt Heaton back in early June, I think it was, or late May. And it was early June. Matt and I were talking in the press conference, and he said, his grandmother is always watching the games, and she's like, could you please just win the game sooner? So look, now with someone that had a serious head injury, I mean, were you watching these games still going, oh, come on, man, let's put this thing away? Because I mean, it's been a little more, a less cardiac kid the last month of the season, but there's a big portion of the season where like Rugby ATL was a cardiac kids. They either were almost gave it up at the end or came back and won at the end of the game. With a guy who had a head injury, was that something that affected you at all? Because as someone that didn't have a head injury, I'm like shaking my head, going, come on, guys, finish it up.
Oh yeah, super stressful. I think it's good for me. It's probably good for me to be exposed to that sort of thing as well. Because as I think of one of the things they told me is, I need to start expose myself more to lights and the loud areas and those stressful situations. So to watch a Rugby ATL game is perfectly help me desensitize those things. So that's good.
Absolutely cool. Well, listen, Harley Davidson, it's a real pleasure to get a chance to chat with you. And I'm glad to see that you're doing well. And we hope and look forward to seeing you on the pitch. I don't know if you'll get into playoffs. It looks like you're really done for the season here, but we look forward to seeing you next season. And thanks a lot for coming on. I appreciate it.
No, I appreciate it. Thank you. You have a good one.